Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Final Down NFL podcast with me, Jim, Punk Raider, and Denver Dave. We're here to talk with NFL. Boys, how we doing?
Emotion. It's the last one of the year.
It's kind of feels like end of term. We kind of need to bring some games in and sign each other's shirts and stuff like that.
I mean, I don't know what schools you went to.
Another season, but...
I don't know what schools you went to, but at my school on last day of term, people got stabbed. There's no signing of shirts.
And the first day you were in Nottingham, weren't you?
Yeah, well, this is true.
Guys, it is the end of the season, and we're going to go into cold storage for a few months and then come out again in August ready to attack the 2023/2024 NFL season. But before that, we're going to do our final review. The draft has finished, and we're going to go through a lot of the teams. I think maybe all of them. Who knows how long it's going to take us. But we're going to go through, review the teams, what they did, and what we liked and what we didn't like with the fullness of time. Before we do that...
is that what we're doing? I'm glad someone's told me.
Well, you don't do any research anyway, Punk, so it's fine.
He's just a doddery old man who doesn't know what's happening.
I did actually write a couple of notes for this today.
Excellent. Did you at least look at your draft class? Have you had a look at any of the players?
My draft class. I've got a couple of thoughts on mine.
Excellent. Before we look at the draft classes, then, boys, let's have a look at the players that aren't being picked up for their fifth-year option, because that was a bit of news because there's a lot of them out of that 2020 class. Chase Young, the foremost amongst them, first overall pick in the draft in 2020. He has not been picked up by the Commanders. Isaiah Simmons, who was a top 10 pick for the Cardinals. CJ Henderson, cornerback for the Jags. Mekhi Becton, left tackle for the Jets. Javon Kinlaw, linebacker for the 49ers. Clavon Chason for the Jags again. Edge rusher, he's not been picked up. Jalen Reagor, who wasn't even drafted by the Vikings, is now on the Vikings team and is not being picked up for his fifth-year option. Kenneth Murray, linebacker for the Chargers. Cesar Ruiz, center for the Saints. Jordan Brooks, linebacker for the Seahawks, and Patrick Queen, linebacker for the Ravens. Noah Igbenogany for the Dolphins, as well as Austin Jackson, offensive tackle for the Dolphins, are not being picked up. And Clyde the Slide Edwards-Helaire for the Chiefs, running back at the end of the first round, is not being picked up for his fifth-year option. Anything in there that's surprising to you guys?
Yeah, Chase Young, but I think we know why. It's because of his injuries. It's not always a negative. You know, the fact that fifth-year options aren't being picked up. It's because sometimes it's just, look, we're not going to do a fifth-year option because during the season we fully intend to sign you to a big deal. So it's not always a negative, but more often than not, it probably is. But yeah, the Chase Young one was a big surprise. And sometimes teams just think they can get you cheaper for that fifth or sixth year than they can if they tag you. So it's effectively a tag. It's only first round grades that get those.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Chase Young is pretty much the only one really that kind of leaps out and says, "Why aren't you picking me?" Because let's be honest, he is a difference maker when he's on the field. I know he's had a few injury issues, but
Javon Kinlaw is a big one as well because he's got massive amounts of potential, but he just hasn't really shown that he's a top tier player. And a lot of the time, I fully support the decision not to do it because, you know, I think you can pick up better pass rushers probably for less money than his fifth-year option is going to be. So it kind of makes sense.
And he's basically defensive tackle anyway. Fun bit of that was that the Dolphins had 3 first-round picks in that draft, and they're only picking up 2 as option for a fifth year. But even he's a bit of a type fifth-year option pickup. They were worried about that. So yeah, there we go. Jeff Okudah was obviously ineligible for the option, and Jordan Love signed a contract extension for no reason whatsoever by the looks of it.
Why was Jeff Okudah ineligible for the fifth-year option?
Because of
I know he's traded teams, but is it?
Okay. He was allowed an extra year.
But then Chase Young should be allowed an extra year, no?
He didn't lose an entire season.
Oh, he lost like 16 games rather than 17.
Yeah. There are rules around this kind of thing.
There are rules,
okay,
Dave.
I mean, you've got to draw the line somewhere. I'm fine with that. No problem.
You picked up Jerry Jeudy's fifth-year option. Happy about that?
Yep, because he has trade value. If you want to trade him in, I think he's probably worth a second at the moment. But if he has a good year, you might get slightly.
You say seventh? Sorry, seventh rounder?
Yeah. Seventh? Was that?
No, I think as a team, you know, people were offering seconds and we were rejecting them because we wanted to keep.
No one was offering a second.
No, they genuinely were. The Jets were offering a second. But I think the fact is, with someone like Jerry Jeudy, who's got that ability to be, you know, to be a playmaker. it makes sense to keep hold of them. There's no reason necessarily to get rid of him. So yeah, makes sense.
I'd suggest dropping the ball's probably a fairly good reason to get rid of a wide receiver, but if you want to keep him, you keep him.
You'll find out about that next season. Don't worry about that.
So that'll be season 5, yeah. So we're ignoring the first 4, and we're just going to go off the final one.
Okay. To be fair to him,
I'll make a note of that for the next season.
No. I listen. I personally, I wouldn't. If there was no 5th year option, if he was a second rounder, would I be offering him a big deal? Probably not. But as the 5th year option is there, hey, bring it in. Why not? Go for it.
We spent far too much time on Jerry Jeudy anyway, so let's move on then, and let's talk about that draft. So actually, before we get into the draft class, we talked on the last pod, Dave, about how close we were in our mock draft to the other.
What it was, so just to give everyone a recap, if anyone missed the last one. So during the draft, I did took an analytical approach where I took 20 different networks or 19 different networks, and was able to map the first round. But it was difficult because some players weren't picked who got mapped and blah blah blah. But now everyone's been drafted, and I'm able to run through basically a full list because I took the top 150 from every one of the lists. And to start with, I think ESPN were first. No, we were first. ESPN was second.
Hey, surely we were.
And I can't remember who was third. Someone else was third anyway. And PFF was second last. PFF had an absolute stormer in rounds 2, 3, and 4. I am not joking. They hit home run after home run. So as it turns out,
let's be honest, rounds 2, 3, and 4, no one's sitting there for 3 months beforehand, really kind of poring over it. And
I think PFF probably are. That's the thing.
Yeah, but PFF are probably the only ones that are.
Yeah. So Draft Network.
Everyone else is just a first round mock draft most of the time. So.
Yeah. So it was Tankathon who was second, and ESPN who were third. Draft Network were fourth, and you expect Draft Network to be quite high. So we came third, I think, overall. ESPN came first, Draft Network came second, and PFF came fourth.
I think that's quite good for a bunch of wet lads from the UK that, half of you haven't only started watching football in the last decade or so.
It was only me and Dave doing the draft analysis. We had to then put it through you to then make a pick.
Exactly. So I'm then picking. So I'm obviously picking quite well. Off your recommendations.
We fell down, obviously, on Will Levis. We were 31 places out on Will Levis. And we were 20 places out on Joey Porter Jr. because he went at the top of the second round. We were
the one thing
10 places off on Deontay Banks, 11 on Nolan Smith, 21 on Brian Branch, 15 on Jahmyr Gibbs because he went so high. I tried to get him higher, but obviously Dave tried his best to put him lower. That's where PFF fell down with Jahmyr Gibbs. They had him 38 places lower than where he went.
That's why they were so bad in the first round. In case anyone's wondering, I didn't grade the full top 150. I graded the top 32 picks of each team. So basically, it's
31.
Like for like. 31, yeah. But I graded those sort of like for like. So it was an even contest. But yeah, so I think we did all right. That's not bad.
The one thing I found really interesting with that whole piece is actually how none of us in our mock draft at any point considered the Texans moving back up, because it's the Texans moving back up that kind of really kind of screwed everything for us.
But
otherwise, I think we would have been even more accurate. Yeah, no, absolutely. But at no point during the consideration of what may happen did any of us go, "Oh, actually, the Texans might go up and take 2 and 3." So
let's start with that then. Let's start with the Houston Texans and what they did, because they did have the second pick in the draft, and they went with CJ Stroud, despite everyone saying they're going for Will Anderson. And then we knew the Cardinals wanted to move out, and we knew the Texans had lots of picks, but we didn't put 2 and 2 together and make that, because they did give up an awful lot to get Will Anderson at 3. They gave up a first and the third next year for Will Anderson, as well as the 33rd pick, which the Cardinals moved down again with the Titans, who moved up for Will Levis. And they had a 4th rounder from this draft that the Cardinals also shifted out when the Eagles moved up to get Keely Ringo. So Arizona converted that 3rd pick into a first and 2 third-round picks next year. Yeah. So they got 2 first-round picks next year, 3 third-round picks next year as well, just off that 3rd overall pick and trading out. That is a lot to give up for Will Anderson. That's QB prices.
But what I would say is the amount of, so when you're talking about economics, for example, the amount of money you spend is relative to how difficult it is to earn. And it's not difficult for the Texans to earn picks at the moment because they've got so many. So you can afford to then look at it and go, I mean, I'm not losing out on an enormous amount, so let's spend a little bit more than we normally would. But listen, their dedication to getting the best pass rusher in this draft, I think, and I rate him ahead of Jalen Carter. Different players, but I still rate him ahead in terms of ability. And you're getting a leader on defense, and it's what I said in the last draft. You know, their success in recent years has been obviously the Deshaun Watson years, and it's been predicated on a good quarterback and a good pass rush with Deshaun Watson and JJ Watt. Now they're hoping they've got the good quarterback and they've got a good pass rush with Will Anderson. I mean, they've literally stuck to their guns and gone, that's where we had success before. That is what we're doing now. And they've gone and picked him early in the draft. I have no issue with it. If you're going to swing big.
You want that personality on defense and you want that personality on offense. Yes. You've got two young, I'm assuming they're both going to be captains come next season, in that locker room that will be there for a long time. You know, everything I've seen has said, oh yeah, we're comparing Will to Khalil Mack. So, you know, if the closest comp you've got is a player like Khalil Mack coming out of the draft, then yeah, you've got to build around that. And the fact that if you're the Texans, you think you've got two massive cornerstones for at least the next five years plus, then you know, the fact that you've got 15, 16 draft picks means you can pay a little bit over the odds and not worry about it because you're comfortable in the fact that, you know, these are the two guys that are going to help rebuild your franchise.
The only worry for me is that if Stroud doesn't get them 8, 9, 10 wins in this first season, that pick that they've given up, not the Browns pick, that's the Texans pick, that could be quite high. That could be a top 5. And you may want to go and dip again for one of the two outstanding quarterbacks in the next draft. So they might have just hamstrung themselves on that one. They're going to have to hope. They now have to perform. Both of those have to.
If they honestly believe CJ Stroud is their guy and is, you know, the guy who can help them in the long term, absolutely. You know, at that point,
just thought that about Zach Wilson.
Go and get him. I
agree.
Just say.
All of this is conjecture.
No, absolutely.
It's the same with every draft, isn't it? It's all conjecture until you get 2 years down the line and actually look at these players and go, what have they done? What have they not done?
I mean, sometimes
in an ideal world, well, yeah, exactly. But in an ideal world, you'll go and sit CJ Stroud for a season and let him learn, while still picking up, you know, decent amounts of wins with is it Davis Mills still there? So
they picked up someone else in free agency. I think it's Case Keenum.
Case Keenum as well. So he's got people to learn from, you know.
Yeah, it's Case Keenum.
Exactly. And you just can't tell with any of these picks at this moment in time who's going to work out and who isn't.
How dare you, Punk? We know.
Let's be honest. There is the possibility that they could say, okay, let's trade a piece for another first rounder somewhere. If someone's desperate for a left tackle, say, okay, Laramie Tunsil, we want a first rounder because, you know, CJ Stroud's not working out and we can see that in OTAs. Or go, okay, who's desperate for a cornerback? We've got Derek Stingley. So they have pieces, and it's what we've been saying for years about the Texans, though. They just need to keep on improving their pieces and they will get better. And, you know, that is essentially what they've done. They're coming out of this draft significantly better than they were going into it, and that's all you can ask for.
Absolutely.
This is far too much positivity. I want to hear about one of the worst draft classes, Dave. So give me
Steelers.
How dare you? Let's be serious for a minute. Give me a bad draft class out of this lot.
My worst one really is between either the Jets or the Cardinals.
Really?
So
they're not even in my list.
So,
but the Cardinals, I think, had a good draft.
I really don't. The problem is the Cardinals in the first round had the, you know, they were saying they were receiving calls or different, decided not to move down. Instead, picked up Paris Johnson early, and then didn't pick again for quite a while, and ended up picking up BJ Ojulari in the end of the first or the second. Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Pick 41.
But then after that, I don't think they've done enough to actually address their needs. I think they went into trade down mode to stockpile picks.
But they traded back up for Paris Johnson. So they got a boatload of picks from the Texans, and they still moved up and got the guy they probably needed anyway at left tackle.
Yes, but for next year, right now, they have not come out of the draft, I think, any stronger than they went into it. So that's one of the reasons they're on my list. And I think if they can, the thing is, they've been forced to pick up a bit of a luxury pick in Michael Wilson, because I don't think Wilson's necessarily as high as they've picked him up, and I don't think he's the kind of receiver that's going to change their season next year. They're still without a quarterback. They picked up a quarterback late, but I've got no idea who it was. I can't remember. It's one of the 15 that were taken. They haven't really picked anyone up in free agency because Kyler Murray's missed him for the first 14 weeks or so. So next season, it just feels like they're already in sort of tank mode and pick up players who aren't, and they're just, picking up players for next year when they're probably going to go and get another quarterback in the draft. It just felt like a bit of a nothing pick for a bit of a nothing draft for the Arizona Cardinals.
The problem with the Cardinals is more the fact that they've got so many holes. Yeah. It didn't matter who they drafted or what positions. It was going to be a drop in the ocean anyway. So, it really is going to be a case for the Cardinals. It could be, like you say, that they end up going for another quarterback next year after being completely abject this year, or it could be that actually the players from this year create the basis of what's going to happen over the next 2 or 3 years. And it might be that you can get 2 or 3 out of this draft class to really kind of create that platform for them to move on.
Yeah,
but it's a tricky one when a team's as bad as the Cardinals have been.
Yeah, it's
almost irrelevant how many good picks they had because they need so many players.
And I mentioned the Jets because I think Will McDonald, the pickup in the first, was a bit of a reach. Tippmann looks absolutely fine. And then after that, it's just a bit of a who's who. And they picked up Israel Abikanda, the running back out. I can't remember who he's out of now. But there was other guys out there who were potentially better. And I don't think it's an area of need. I think they've got enough running backs. But yeah, it just felt like a bit of a strange one. I think they could still do with a starting tackle as well. Tippmann, who they picked up.
They got Carter Warren in the 4th round from Pittsburgh as well.
Yes, and if you're banking on a 4th round tackle being your a 4th round pick being your starting tackle, getting chewed out constantly by Aaron Rodgers, best of luck with that.
They picked up Billy Turner from the Broncos at right tackle.
Yes, they did. You're right, and you're picking. So you're saying that's a positive, picking up a Broncos tackle.
I didn't say that. I was waiting for you to tear into him.
You were leading
to turnstile for a reason,
It was. Listen, Billy Turner's knocked around the league for a bit, and he's been a depth tackle, and he's a very nice guy. That's what
they also got Wes Schweitzer at guard from the Commanders before the draft happened, so they have done some work in free agency. Yeah, another guard. Yeah. All right. I mean, they obviously got their pants pulled down in the first round when the Steelers jumped them for Broderick Jones. And they panicked and
then
went,
it was full panic mode. Full panic mode. Because
that was surprising to me because Joe Douglas had a great draft last year.
Yes, 2022 they absolutely killed it, but this year was just a bit. It was a bit vanilla. Yeah, it was just a bit weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're my 2 that I think are probably worst.
Only 2. Okay, I've got other. What about you then, Punk? Any thoughts on the draft? Obviously. You've now allowed yourself to look at some stuff.
I can come up with more if you want to.
I mean, I'm one of the. I'm never going to sit there and analyze all these picks like you guys do. So you'll hear little from me in this conversation. But I do like what the Eagles did. I thought the Eagles, and I'm sure we'll get onto them. I thought the Eagles were fantastic. As for anyone, I don't like picking teams that have had a really bad draft because we don't know. We just don't know.
But what you can look at is you can say, okay, have they addressed a need? Have they picked up a guy who's going to make them
there's addressing needs in different ways, isn't there? It may well be that actually we've just taken some capital here that we can trade on in, later in preseason that actually we're going to go and get something that we need later on. So it's difficult to know.
we have seen year by year that, teams that you can look at and say they have fundamentally changed their team. The Jets last year, you could see the Jets are a bloody good
absolutely,
team. They're
absolutely.
one player away from being a great team.
And I do
you
find
can see that the day after the draft, you say they're a really good team now, and that opinion did not change for the entire year.
No, I agree. And I do find it really interesting how a team can 1 year draft really well and, be completely solid and get absolutely everything that they need, the players that fit, the personalities that fit, and then flip it so that actually coming out of this draft, everyone's a little bit shaky and not too sure. Now, maybe some of that comes from the whole Aaron Rodgers thing and, the fact that it took so long to get sorted and settled, so no one really knew what was going on at quarterback, etc., etc. It was fairly obvious the Jets didn't want to give up that pick to the Packers, but, they had to have the quarterback in the end. They were kind of backed into a corner. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and slate all of these kids coming out of college saying, "Oh, I don't think they'll make it. I don't think they'll make it. They're not good enough. They're in the wrong team or whatever."
Oh, I will.
Just don't know. I
mean, that's up to us then,
exactly, and that's what you guys are here for. And I'm providing the balance for once, which is kind of interesting.
Oh God,
blimey!
But there we go. But I do like what the Eagles did, and I like what the Ravens did as well, which is not good for you, Jim. But
why do you like what the Ravens did then?
I don't know. It just feels to me that no. It's just when you get that gut feeling of actually, okay, hang on a minute. From an end of season that's been in complete turmoil for weeks around their quarterback, all of a sudden it's like all the pieces are starting to fall into place, and actually you can see that this offense is going to be good next year. The defense doesn't have to be great; it just has to be good enough. And I think they've picked up enough what I would call fairly decent players to actually put something together. So, I'm not just looking at drafted players here. I'm looking at the organization as a whole. So, that Ravens team I think is going to be a lot better this season than it was last.
Yeah,
this
I think
season. Next season.
The main thing for the Ravens, which I was most impressed with, is they did what Green Bay have resisted doing for so long. Said, look, we've got our quarterback. We're going to go and get him a bloody good weapon. And Zay Flowers is a good weapon. Operates in the slot, can operate outside, but you probably won't do, but can be dominant in the middle. So one side you got Zay Flowers, the other side you got Mark Andrews, and this is for a quarterback who fails. You've got Odell Beckham on the outside, Bateman on the outside. But you've now got two inside receiving threats for a quarterback who historically doesn't push it down the field that much.
Yeah,
you've supported your guy. Massive, well done. If Zay Flowers turns out to be a bust, you've still gone out and rolled the dice on the best possible recipe that's going to give you success. And Trenton Simpson, by the way, is linebacker. That could end up being a very, very good value pick. Line it with Patrick Queen.
Not you'll admit it. But,
that's exactly what I liked.
They had two good picks in this draft.
Might end up as a value pick.
Yeah,
the first two picks I can't fault them, but the rest of it, whatever.
Yeah, but you can say that about a lot of teams.
Yeah, well, it's difficult.
Yeah,
three picks, great, and then not quite sure what you're doing there.
They picked up Jason Voorhees in the 7th, didn't
they? I was actually more impressed with the other two AFC North teams, the Bengals and the Browns, than the Ravens in the draft class. The Bengals, I think they hit with Miles Murphy and DJ Turner in the first and second round. Jordan Battle's a good safety out of Alabama, and then Chase Brown, running back from Illinois, in the 5th. Is another one that I'm annoyed that they got. So I think they did some good work there.
Miles Murphy, Brown for the Chiefs. I've got no love for, so it's Clemson.
Yeah, I know, but you said about Trenton Simpson, he's Clemson as well. You just praised him.
Yes. No, I know, but Trenton Simpson's a good player.
Right. Okay. And then the Browns, Cedric Tillman, again, good wide receiver from Tennessee in round 3. Siaki Ika, one of Dave's favorites.
Yeah.
After that, Baylor.
Bless you.
Sorry.
And DeWand Jones, offensive tackle from Ohio State, in the 4th. And then Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the backup quarterback, a pick 140 from UCLA. That might be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Why?
If Deshaun Watson continues to be as crap as he has been last season, he might get a bit of a run out.
Right. He won't. Deshaun Watson, the only way he's going to play is if Deshaun Watson gets injured. But he's certainly a prospect. He's certainly a prospect. He in his college career, he showed more than enough for a team to warrant spending a decent pick on it and not raise an eyebrow. So yeah, DTR is a good player.
But to be honest, there was only one truly great AFC North draft, and that was for my Steelers.
Someone put him on mute.
Allow it for me. It's been the first time in at least 10 years that I've seen a truly good Steelers draft. I went back, I checked. We've been dross. And thank Christ that Kevin Colbert is out of the building, because Omar Khan just absolutely rinsed it this year. I'm so happy.
The draft fell to you nicely, I will say
that. We had to come for that one. We had to move up to 13.
Yeah,
and we still moved down and still got Darnell Washington. We got our 4th round pick back and got Darnell Washington with it. And we got Joey Porter Jr. just fell into our laps at 32.
So, Punk, in case you don't know, Darnell Washington is a tight end who's not a tight end. He's a tight end who's too small to be a lineman. Right. Basically.
He's, 6'7"?
Yeah, exactly. Can't catch, won't catch.
We'll see. Didn't have to. They had Brock Bowers at see, this is what you don't know. They had Brock Bowers at Georgia. They didn't need to use him as a pass catcher.
I know.
He was the 6th lineman.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I just said.
What we want.
I'm not throwing shade. Everything
sounds
I said
like you
was
are.
true.
I'm on edge
beauty
now.
Is in beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
One of my favorites. And then even Corey Trice down in the round 7. He could be a sneaky pick up there. Yeah, absolutely incredible. And actually, that move down was our first trade down in 13 years. We don't trade down normally. We did this time. It all worked out. I'm so happy.
I'm amazed there are even stats on we haven't traded down in 13 years. I mean, seriously, why are we bothering keeping score with that?
The stats were we haven't traded down in 13 years and we haven't picked anyone good in 10 years. That was
that's not true. That's not true. We just have very thin, very lean drafts normally. But this one was quite filling.
Your top 3, Broderick Jones should be a good tackle. It'll improve you anyway. Joey Porter Jr., I can't believe went in the 2nd round. But it's great for you because you haven't got a 5th-year option on him. You can just sign him as and when.
The thing is that all those Steeler fans that have already got a Porter shirt just can't dust it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's taken like Turner's number at 24. So he's not taking his dad's number. He was 55.
Yeah, as long as linebacker to a cornerback, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So.
As long as he's not having junior on his shirt, then you're all right. That's the main thing.
He will.
If you're sticking the junior on there. And then Keanu Benton is going to be playing in the middle of a pretty fearsome pass rush show. Mm-hmm. You don't expect him to fail. If he does, it's quite serious questions got to be asked when you got Cam Haber one side and the other side. So
Logan Joby in there as well in the centre.
Yeah, absolutely. So it makes sense. I think it'll be fun.
I'm a happy boy. Very happy boy. So that's covered off some of the best ones. See, I was nice to the Bengals and the Browns there.
Can I make a request? Can we talk about the Raiders?
Yes.
All right.
Let's talk about the Raiders. We've talked about your team, so let's now go and speak about the Raiders.
Yes. I like the first 2.
Yes.
I think the first 2. I think Michael Mayer we talked about on our draft pod. It feels like he actually.
Have you seen any tape on him now?
At 35, I've seen a bit. I haven't watched a huge amount, but you
can see the potential, though, right?
He can run, yeah. He could very well turn into a Darren Waller replacement, and I
mean, he has to.
Well, theory.
But the thing, what I said in our round 1 review was that. One thing that's almost certain is that Max Crosby is going to get traded, because the one thing the Raiders can't do is live happily ever after. And you've got
we're not allowed to.
You've got 2 pass rushers now, and you're going to go, let's trade him. Let's trade him to the 7th round pick to the Chiefs. Because that's what you have to do.
Most of our Davis will come down.
No, it's fine. I like the Tyree Wilson pick. It's absolutely something that we need. The middle part of our draft, I kind of went, So round 3, Brian Young, I think that's fine. Yes, we needed a defensive lineman. Don't get the Trey Tucker pick unless something's happening with, oh God, my brain's just gone.
Hunter Renfrow.
Isn't
he ill? Like seriously ill?
No, that was the tight end that we sent to the Saints.
Foster Moreau,
not Hunter Renfrow.
Okay. They sound similar. Give me.
They just rhyme.
They sound similar in the same way that Brian Young and Baron Young
Byron Young.
Byron Young. They sound similar as well.
Yeah, and Bryant Young as well. But
that's all of them.
Too old school.
There were 2 Byron Youngs in this draft.
I was most surprised that you only picked up 1 cornerback and 1 safety.
That's the bit that makes me sit there and go, what? Because the one area that we needed more than anything else was, defensive backfield. So I don't get picking one. All right, Jacorian Bennett might turn into a great safety. Great cornerback. Fantastic. We need more than one. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Aidan O'Connell, I don't get that at all. Why are we picking a quarterback that can't throw the ball downfield? What's that?
Consistency.
We've got Devontae Adams. Why do we not want to throw the ball down the field?
Consistency. That is the worst burn Jim's ever said.
Yeah, maybe.
That says more about Jim than anything else, though.
I'll be brutally honest. Yeah, all right. We picked up a linebacker in round 6 and a defensive tackle again in round 7. I'm not expecting a huge amount from them. I don't get why we went defensive tackle at the end when we'd already picked up Brian Young, and we've already got 3 defensive tackles on the roster. So someone's getting cut fairly shortly. Linebacker, if you're going to do it, talking to you guys previously, this wasn't a great draft for linebackers. So who knows? It might turn out all right, but it's a round 6 pick, so I'm not bothered. The bit that bothers me is kind of the second round 3 pick and the 2 round 4 picks. I'm really not. I don't like the Aidan O'Connell pick at all. Trey Tucker, I just don't see the upside, to be honest. So apart from he can run fast, yeah, exactly. Which is
very fast.
Kind of gave me those visions of Al Davis of previous years, going pick the fastest player in the draft.
If it's any consolation, so
I just think it's an iffy pick. You know what I mean? It's like he might be great, but
if it's any consolation, so as soon as the draft is done, the market then opens to sign undrafted free agents, and there's always a gem or 3 in the undrafted free agent market. The Rams have signed $1 billion because they're carrying on their legacy, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. The Raiders have signed 11 undrafted free agents.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you haven't picked up too many defensive backs. Do you want to guess how many of the 11 are defensive backs?
2.
3.
There you go.
Yeah, 2 of which had a draft grade on them. One of which is unknown draft grade. So, yeah, and that's safety and cornerback. So, I was half expecting, you to pick up 9 of the 11 or so, but you picked up more edge rushers on undrafted free agents than you have defensive backs.
Yeah. So it's fairly obvious what the Raiders' game plan next year is. It's get to the quarterback,
murder, death, kill,
enough time to get the ball down the field to his receivers, because the defensive backfield will not hold up under pressure.
Well, can I try and make you feel better then?
Interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but
I can try and make you feel better as well, mate, because actually I think that Christopher Smith II that you got in the 5th round from Georgia is actually a very good safety. He fell, I think, because he had a very bad 40 time. I think he did like a 4.6 40 and it just was too slow, but he's actually a really smart player. So out of all those, he might be one that you can kind of brush up and do well. And you already brought in Marcus Epps from the Eagles on a 2-year, $12 million deal in free agency. So it's not, it's not the barren wasteland that it normally is.
I'm not completely depressed about the whole thing. I think there are some pieces in there that can work. Mm-hmm. I think we did address a couple of issues. I think the tight end is good. I think Tyree Wilson, if he does turn into Max Crosby too, then that's a massive plus, with Chandler Jones being 34 or whatever he is now and not being particularly good last season. So we've got a ready-made replacement there. It's just everything else. But this is me in the draft, isn't it? It's very much a case of, all right, I can go and watch these players, but actually, does it translate to the NFL? Because the receivers are better, the quarterbacks are throwing the ball harder.
Well, Byron Young's comp was Chandler Jones. Weirdly, that was by NFL Network anyway. So Tyree Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson, not Byron Young.
Yeah. So I think the big issue with the Raiders pickup, I think the big issue that I can see is that with the lack of defensive backs that you brought in, it still leaves you with holes in your roster. And as you mentioned, Jim, there are positives with the Christopher Smith pickup, but let's not forget that each team effectively passed on him 6 times. So they
passed on Brady as well.
Saying, I don't think that it's just down to a 40 time. I genuinely don't think that.
If Chris Smith turns into the second coming of Ronnie Lott, I'll be a very happy man.
There you go.
I mean, understatement of the century.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But you are right, Dave. I mean,
as long as he's not Jonathan Abraham,
there
you're
has
fine.
To be reasons as to why he's getting picked at 170.
The thing you want to hope, though, is that he's going to have the biggest, fattest, dirtiest chip on his shoulder, and he just wants to go out and just murder people. That's all you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, best of luck to him.
I want that.
He's in the right place for it as well. So
we've all got a chip. Come on, man.
I might murder someone. Okay, right. So let's try and make Punk even more happy then, Dave, because 2 of the teams I've got in my worst list for this draft was the Chargers.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs, to be honest. So
the Chiefs felt. Can we go Chiefs first? Chiefs felt just a bit meh. I wasn't inspired by anything, but again,
But when are you with a Chiefs draft? Let's be honest. When apart from Patrick Mahomes in the last 7 years, when did you look at a Chiefs draft pick and go, "Ooh, that's a good pick"?
I'll tell you when they picked up Tyreek Hill, I went, "Oh no." When they picked up Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I was like, "Oh, that's a waste." So that was when I was happy with the Chiefs pick. But players like Juan Thornhill, these are players I've said they are good players and they will be good for them. For this, I'm coming out of it going, they're probably going to wind up being good players because they're on a good team.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you've gone, bloody hell, the Chiefs are on it again. And they went into this draft with a lot of draft picks. They could have been really aggressive and gone up and gotten a couple of stars. But you come out of it going, I feel all right about that. I don't feel too bad.
I mean, they're on easy mode because they've got the alpha predator at the quarterback position. But I mean, Felix Adenike-Uzama is a fairly decent pickup at the end of the first, but I think they didn't really move the needle at all with any of their picks. Wanya Morris is all right from Oklahoma at defensive tackle. I'm not sure about Rashee Rice. He's a contested catch kind of guy. I mean, it might just work perfectly for Mahomes because, he'll make it work. But they moved on Juju Smith-Schuster to the Patriots. Juan Thornhill, who we both agree is a very good safety, has gone to the Browns. Carlin Saunders, the defensive tackle they drafted, he's gone off to the Saints. Mecole Hardman's gone to the Jets. It's a bit of a thinner group, I think, that's going to be a bit more difficult to just waltz their way up to the Super Bowl again this year. From what I've seen from their draft class, it just didn't really hit for me. They could have taken people like Darnell Washington further down. Had some more things to throw out there. They just didn't really do anything too spectacular.
The main thing is they've replaced players that they've replaced players that needed positions that where they had holes, and it's efficient. But a lot of these players will turn out to be probably Super Bowl winners, to be perfectly honest. So, and we're going to look like idiots, but it's just not massively inspiring at the moment. That's all.
You've got a good chance of getting a ring if you've got Mahomes on your team, but it doesn't mean you're a great player. And then the other one was the Chargers. Again, I wasn't a massive fan of Quentin Johnston. They did pick him because obviously we had the Mike Williams comp. I get it. And then apart from Diane Henley, there was no one else I really liked in that draft.
For you, Punt, he was the wide receiver who Jim was heavily critical of, and I didn't necessarily disagree. I think you were.
He only catches 57% of his passes.
Yeah, absolutely. He drops far too many. And I said, that doesn't always transition to the NFL. I hope it does. But again, what I said in our draft review is that him going to the Chargers I think it's a bonus for the other teams in there because he's going to be dropping big passes and he's a proper outside threat because he's like 6'20". And it also might spell the end of the road for Mike been beset by injuries at the Chargers, but is a good weapon when he plays. Yeah. So if the Chargers pick up him, get rid of Williams, it's a win-win potentially. But of the other players, I think you're right. I think you come out of it just going, I'm not sure what you guys are doing.
You were there, but did you do anything? Like,
yeah.
Just you had to pick someone at the time where you just kind of spun the roulette
like when
wheel.
You're on Madden and you do an auto pick.
Yeah.
And you go, he wasn't even on my list. Where'd you pick him from?
Yeah. And they've only picked up Eric Kendricks in free agency. I mean, they re-signed tackle Trey Pipkins, but they lost Drew Tranquill at linebacker, Matt Filer
you know why,
at guard,
don't you?
DeAndre Carter, Troy Weeder.
You know why? It's the cap. And a lot of people say cap's not real. This is the cap being real. If you're an organization that doesn't have a huge amount of money, you can't constantly restructure people's contracts. And this is the thing you've seen the Broncos. The Broncos obviously have a lot of money. The Broncos have a huge amount of money right now because of the owners and et cetera, et cetera. And we're able to restructure deals and go, oh, you know that 50 million you had, we'll just give it as a signing bonus and it was spread over the next 5 years. Here's all your money in one go. And that's, easy for teams to do who've got loads of money. Chargers don't have loads of money, despite only paying £1 a year, $1 a year ground rent on their stadium. They still don't have a huge amount of money. So, and this is an exact reason why Bosa signed that massive deal that they're still paying off. Khalil Mack, they traded for, didn't give up much draft capital, but paying him 27 million in cash this year or something stupid like that. They're just paying everyone a lot of money. And you're right, Jim. They haven't even paid Herbert yet. They have to do that this year. They have to do that this year. If they don't, Herbert's going to want out because that's the rage nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that happens.
I don't think it was a great draft for the Chargers.
No,
real poverty franchise. I mean, Spanos buys Twixes with a checkbook, doesn't he? Anyway, we did mention the Eagles earlier. I suppose we should just coat over those. Punk, yep. Obviously, it's easy when you just look at Georgia's defense and go, I'll have that one, and I'll have that one, and I'll have that one. Yeah. But they were allowed to because Jalen Carter fell to them at 9. And why wouldn't you? I said it on the day one draft review that I did with Dave, which you should check out, obviously, but did mention that I think it was the perfect situation for him to go into because not only have you got his college mates there that were increasing by the day, but you also have people like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, established people in the building that can really put their arm around him and hopefully make him the player or keep him as the player that we think he should be, which is an absolute mauler in the middle of that defense. So I loved that pick. I loved Nolan Smith somehow falling to him at 30. Yeah. Outrageous that happened. And then they also fleeced the Lions for DeAndre Swift on the side, just for funsies. They went, oh, yeah, well, you've just picked up Jahmyr Gibbs at 12, so you don't need Swift anymore. He's demanding a trade, so we'll give you a 4th round pick for him, and you'll say thank you. And they went, yeah, okay, and they just gave him it. Yeah, it's like, okay, brilliant.
They're not the first team recently though to fleece the Lions. I mean,
no.
Well, the Vikings did it with TJ Hawkinson, didn't they? They gave him like a 7th or something stupid. It's somewhat weird with the Lions. They're just desperate to clear cap space. No, I think as with the 2022 draft, when everything just fell to the Jets, there's something about playing in green. Everything just fell to the Eagles this year, and it was easy mode. But yeah, they had a Lineker draft. They just stood there and it fell off their shins with no skill involved.
I mean, the fact that they went so heavily on defense. They already have a great defense, and if Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, even players like Sidney Brown and what's the lad Ringo
Moro Ojomo. Keely Ringo, but then Moro Ojomo at the end of the draft is pretty decent.
Well, this is the thing. If Moro Ojomo turns out to be a decent player, that's another good player they've got on defense. I mean, come on.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
Not fair. It's cheating.
Pretty much. Okay. Who else? The Colts. I think the Colts had a pretty decent draft as well.
Maybe.
Anthony Richardson, obviously love him. Julius Brents is decent cornerback. Josh Downs, a great slot receiver from North Carolina. Blake Freeland, a very good offensive tackle from BYU. And Adetomiwa Adebawore. He was a reason why a lot of the other draft analysis things went wrong because they had him in the first round and he went, what was it, in the 4th, 110.
How many times did you practice his name? Come on, be honest.
I really haven't, as much as I should have done. Who was it? The Ringer had him 90 places higher than he went.
Yeah.
PFF had him that franchise guy had him 72 places higher, and ESPN had him 80 places higher than he went in this draft.
The issue that I've got with going back to Josh Downs for a moment, didn't see him play a single game. I know nothing about him other than just watching his tape. And every catch he caught, he could have trod on a landmine and it would have only got him. He had that much space. So it's hard. It is very quick, but it's hard to. But then again, the guys who are marking you in the NFL, they're also quick. So it's hard to really sort of judge how good he is. It's like Theo Walcott playing League Two football. It's like he's much faster than everyone else, but yeah, when you get up to the Premier League, everyone else is that fast. So it'll be interesting to see how it moves.
I'm just glad they did something, because obviously if Andy Richardson has to play at some point in the season, anyone under centre in that team has to be able to throw it across the middle, and he's going to be there.
I hope he doesn't play a single snap all season.
But you don't. But I thought it was
not as a bad thing for his own good.
Fair enough. I think they've done pretty well in free agency as well. Sam Abraham from the 49ers at defensive end, Taven Bryan, defensive tackle from the Browns. They picked up Gardner Minshew as a kind of backup guy, probably starter for them. Although I did see them didn't he get like less than 10 points for the Eagles against the Saints last season? That's not great.
Yeah, he was dreadful.
Yeah. And Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver from the Bills, on a 1-year deal, and Pharaoh Brown from the Browns.
Bronco.
Yeah.
But
I thought that was a fairly decent draft. They smashed the first half of their draft, is what I can see. Really, the top 4 rounds, which is the most you can ask for most drafts. Panthers, they nailed their draft needs and have been aggressive in free agency as well. I said
it first. They won the draft.
There's only 5 picks, but when you've got Bryce Young at 1, Jonathan Mingo in the second round, wide receiver from Ole Miss, who's a very, very good wide receiver. That's really helpful. Chandler Zavala, in the 4th round, the guard from NC State. Even Jamie Robinson at the end, that was not a bad pickup as well. And then you've got Adam Thielen from the Vikings, you've got Miles Sanders, running back from the Eagles, and safety Von Bell from the Bengals. I think they've done pretty well so far. They won it, but with 5 picks, I'm not sure you can win it. But I think they had a very good draft.
Can we talk about another team that had 5 picks? You know what I'm talking about. Those orange and blue Broncos. I'll be very quick. You
will have to be.
We picked up a wide receiver who we really like. We came in to go and get him. We picked up a linebacker, Drew Sanders, who was the best rated player on the board by many at that point.
Yep.
We picked up a white cornerback, and there's only other one in the league, Riley Moss, but we'll probably end up playing safety, let's be honest. The player I'm most excited about is JL Skinner, who's going to play safety for us as well. So all together.
Why JL Skinner out of all those? Because I only really thought the first 2 were great pickups.
So he's from Arkansas, who play in the SEC, and basically played Arkansas in the SEC, not a great team, let's be honest. And he was constantly playing against the best, and he stood up to it.
Who are you talking about now? That's Drew Sanders. No, JL Skinner played for Boise State.
Oh, I'm thinking of Drew Sanders. There you go. Drew Sanders is the one I'm most excited about. JL Skinner's the guy who's a Bronco and still a Bronco. There you go.
Right. And on that note, Ledsley goes behind.
Drew Sanders is the guy I'm most excited about. I've watched a lot of tape.
Oh, wow.
So it's not Emmanuel Sanders?
No.
Your draft class.
Marvin Mims' comp was Emmanuel Sanders, which I thought was quite nice. But no, altogether, I think fairly successful. But only 5 picks and nothing to get overly excited about.
One more good draft, and it's a shame he's not here, but I think they did it again, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe. They picked up the best cornerback in the draft and the best wide receiver in the draft in the first round. Derek Hall is an absolute steamroller. They got in second, and Zach Charbonnet.
Yes,
my 3rd favorite running back, possibly more than 3rd favorite for you, Dave.
No, he's my favorite.
He's your favorite. So there we go. Yes. The best running back.
Not the best.
All right, okay.
No, and I said this on our pre-draft.
Yeah.
Not the best, but my favorite. I think he'll have a very good career. He's going to be part of a 1-2 punch. He's shifty. He's very much an outside zone runner. But I think he's one of those guys who's really likable in the way that he plays. Just honest, just an honest, good, not downhill runner. Yeah, no, he's I think he's a very, very good player. And Jim, you've seen him as well. You have to admit he's very likable in the way he plays.
Yep.
Always fights for that extra yard as well.
Anthony Bradford, the guard from LSU, is decent as well. So I think they really did hit with those first 5 picks.
LSU suck. It's difficult to rate a guard at LSU. They suck.
It will, because he was athletic, so I'll give him that one. All right, so there we go. Finn was happy with it as well. I spoke to him earlier when he also apologised for not being on the pod today. So yeah, I think those are the best of the draft classes. I think Steve's probably won it. I've been holding back.
Oh, what a shock!
I've been holding back a few of these other bad draft classes. Let's just hit them now, please. So first up is the Falcons. I think that Bijan Robinson, as much as I love that guy, and I've obviously comped him as LaDainian Tomlinson, I don't think that was the best place for him to go. I don't think it was the best thing for the Falcons because they had other needs. And I don't think he will move the needle enough. We saw the same thing with Saquon Barkley. You can come into a team, you're amazing, but you only get 3 wins. They don't translate into wins that the same way. And so I'm worried for him in that system. Arthur Smith and Arthur Blank. Arthur Smith, he was used to having Derrick Henry in Tennessee, so he's going to enjoy having the same kind of player now. But I don't see it. And Matthew Bergeron's okay as a guard from Syracuse, but after that, he's just hitting crap. So Zach Harrison, DeMarco Helms, Jovan Gwynn, it's a 7th round picks. I didn't like it.
I think the thing is, the Falcons have picked luxury picks. They've picked guys who they go, you know what? They'll come in and they'll be shiny and they'll be flashy, but aren't necessarily going to help in the trenches, which is, I think, what they need. But ultimately, none of what they've done in the draft matters. What matters is how good is Desmond Ridder going to be next year. And I think that's the way that they've looked at it. Rightly or wrongly, they brought in an offensive tackle who they think is going to help protect him. They brought in a running back who's going to help him, take the pressure off and give him a real run game. So he's going to give him ability to run it over the top. And what I mentioned earlier is their defense is potentially so bad that he's going to get out of jail free card and going, he's got 28 interceptions this year. Yeah, but they're always behind and he's being forced to push it down the field. So it gives him that proper genuine get out of jail free card. Their season does not depend on what they've done in this draft. Their season depends purely how good is Desmond Ridder going to be. And how good is his replacement going to be, who they're going to pick up in free agency before the season starts, because they will do. How good
is that? Taylor Heineke they've moved across. I think he might get some games. Yeah, they've been aggressive in free agency, but I just think that they're not really set up still to succeed next season.
I think Drake London is probably a good shout for fantasy because he might get 1 billion yards next year, but they'll lose a lot of games.
The Los Angeles Rams. I know when you start in the second round, I love. You've got 1 million picks, but they did not do anything
so much.
The only person I liked out of that massive draft haul they got was Puka Nacua, the wide receiver from BYU, and he's so good, but he's never on the field because he was injured. So it's like when he's on the field, he's brilliant, but he's not on the field, so it doesn't really matter. And so I just think they've not brought anyone in free agency either. No one at all.
They can't afford to.
Well, they've got money.
Do they?
Yes, because Jalen Ramsey went and they've managed to free up a little bit of money from the what's his called? They transferred to the Steelers wide receiver. What's his name? Allen
Robinson, but they're paying 2/3 of his salary.
Yeah, they're paying 10 million of it.
They did manage to move Kicker Matt Gay to the Colts on the 4-year, $22.5 million deal. So that's some money back.
So they drafted like 14 players or something like that. Yeah. Guess how many undrafted free agents they picked up?
Well, you said they got a whole load.
Guess
13.
25.
Oh, wow. There you go.
And it's a smorgasbord of guys they've picked up. Listen, man, they've done exactly what they needed to do. They focused for so long on win now and bring in luxury, expensive players. I mean, Aqib Talib, for example, bring him in, Marcus Peters. And these are all guys we're going to bring you in. Von Miller, bring you in right now. We're going to try and win. They did win. But they've been kicking the can so far down the road. They know now we have to go youth. Do you know what? The best thing to do, because let's be honest, the Rams, what's the Rams scouting network like? It's like the performance guys at Renault. Renault build the safest cars on the road. So when they build the performance guys, they go mad and end up building a front-wheel drive car with 350 brake horsepower. That's what they do because you break them free. They've gone mad. They picked up 25 undrafted free agents and drafted 14 players. They've gone nuts. Do you know what? You only need half of those to be any good, and you've got a really good young side there. Throw enough and hope some of it sticks. I love what the Rams have done. They've done a fantastic job. Just hope half of them are half decent and just get as many bodies through the door as you can.
Well, I think you're right. They're not in win now mode. So I agree with you.
100%. 100%.
I think you're absolutely grasping at straws.
But there's a good chance they won't end up finishing bottom of their division because
they will.
The Cardinals.
Well,
you got the Cardinals maybe. Still.
All right, I'll give you that.
I'll have a little bet with you that the Rams finish above the Cardinals next season. But again, all of that depends who the quarterback is.
Yeah, but the Cardinals have no problems about that, haven't they? So let's go back to the NFC South because that's a happy hunting ground for misery. The Saints, I don't think they had a good draft. Brian Brzee from Clemson, defensive tackle in the first round. Isaiah Foskey, defensive end in the second. Kendra Miller, running back from TCU in the third. Again, it was all nothing. The only person I liked was A.T. Perry they took in the sixth, the wide receiver from Wake Forest. They have been aggressive in free agency, but that's the kind of only thing that saved them. And the same thing I think is true of the Bucs. Kalijah Cansey, I don't think is the right system for them. He has a very specific set of skills at defensive tackle because he's so slim. And I don't think it's going to really translate into that Bucs defense. I could be wrong, but I don't know. The only player I liked was Savosia Dennis because he's got such a great name. But other than that, the linebacker from Pittsburgh, they brought in Baker Mayfield, defensive tackle Greg Gaines from the Rams, safety Ryan Neal from the Seahawks, and Chase Edmonds from the Broncos. And that's about it. So I think it's going to be another lean year after that draft haul.
Yep.
Lean.
One good shout out, though, was for the Lions. We criticised the Jack Campbell pickup, but we kind of get what they're doing there. So I think they've just got a defensive captain. Jameer Gibbs, we said, why have you picked that up when you've got DeAndre Swift? Well, it turns out they don't have DeAndre Swift. So, they knew more than we did, shock horror. I think their two big pickups, though, are Brian Branch, who is going to be a defensive captain and will be a phenomenal NFL player. I'm a massive, massive Brian Branch fan. The more I watch him, the more I think he's just absolutely sensational, and he's going to be a big, big hit in Detroit.
Are you just gushing because you're the secret Lions fan and you just don't want to admit
he is, yeah.
Yes, and Hendon Hooker, who's the quarterback who many teams would have been looking at instead of Will Levis, picking him up to sit behind Jared Goff. I think that's a really, really shrewd move.
Yeah, and it's one we talked about in the in our draft as well, about the Lions should be picking up somebody to start thinking about when transition away from Goff. So, yeah, I think again it goes to show that you guys definitely do your homework and understand what it is should be happening, and then it's just really down to the NFL teams to do what we tell them to do. So
the one thing I was dead against was picking up a quarterback in the first round because I think that was a waste. But being able to pick up someone like Hendon Hooker in the second, it was later than that. It was third, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, that is a bargain because you can say to your quarterback, "Look, we're picking up a third-round quarterback. You're still a guy. We still love you."
Yeah.
But just in case, because if you go out and you spend a first-round pick on someone, that's different. That's Aaron Rodgers getting upset mode. But I think they've picked up picked up players who've made their team better. And Sam Laporta as well. It's good. That's a good pickup. He's a tight end who will improve their team because obviously losing TJ Hawkinson.
There are only two more teams I want to talk about, and they're both in my worst list. First up, I'm coming in just my runner-up.
I'm sensing these lists are rather weighted in, worst favor than the best favor. I think you've probably got 24 teams in the worst list and about 7 or 8 in the
no, Pittsburgh.
I had more in the positive column. I had more in the positive column than the negative. You're completely wrong. Completely off base.
Doesn't feel like that.
Well, all right. My runner-up for worst, I'm going to ignore you, is the San Francisco 49ers. I know you never picked till the third round, but you went with Jair Brown, a safety from Penn State, and then you took a kicker in the third round.
Yeah.
I don't agree. You do not draft a kicker.
Yes,
right? You don't. You don't, because anyone below him knows exactly what you think of them. So all those other draft picks they got after will know they are considered less than the kicker. I don't care how good he was in college.
The kicker could be the player that wins the game, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have no way of judging that kicker.
I was talking to apologies if you're gonna talk about the Patriots in a minute, but I was talking to a Patriots supporter, and a lot of people in Patriots land are upset because they obviously picked up a kicker and a punter and said, well, you could do that in undrafted free agent. And I said the same thing I'm going to say to you right now. You know what? When you're inside the 2-minute warning and your man's kicking in high wind from 45 and it goes through the bar, you then sit there and tell me that kickers don't matter. Trust me, exactly. We've all been in a position where your team has played fantastically well, but your kicker's cocked up. Yep. Guess what?
We all know it's the hardest position to judge until they get in there and they know what's going on.
You have to.
Justin Tucker was an undrafted free agent. You get them off the street.
Yeah, Justin Tucker's a draft pick.
You don't waste a draft pick on them. Right? We've talked about this.
It was well worth draft picks.
I don't like it. It stinks. The only thing I liked about the 49ers off-season, the only thing I like about the 49ers off-season is they picked up Javon Hargrave, but that cost them $84 million from the Eagles.
Listen, it's going to be like months until I get to troll and argue with you, Jim. So you have to give me a little bit of leeway, all right?
I will.
That's what I'm doing. I think it was a great pick. I think they won the draft.
We did hear what you said 10 seconds ago.
No, I know.
On to my grand prize for worst draft class.
Drums, please.
The Green Bay Packers.
Really?
They had 13 draft picks. I didn't like any of them. Or didn't care about any of them. All you needed to do was help Jordan Love in this draft. You haven't helped Aaron Rodgers for a decade. We know that. But you could have at least done something to help out Jordan Love, apart from giving him a little bit more money for this year.
They did. In their first 4 picks, they got 2 tight ends and 1 wide receiver.
Brilliant. Yeah.
No. That's helping him.
No.
And then with their sort of 5th or 6th pick, they picked up his replacement. That's really nice.
Sean Clifford, yeah. So many picks and so little effort has been made on this.
You just don't like him. You don't like him because they drafted a kicker. That's all it is.
Oh, that as well. But, that was at least a bit further down. That was into round 6. But Lucas Van Ness is a good edge rusher. It's not what they needed. They do this every year. They take another edge rusher, take another defensive 7 player. They keep doing it. And they never feed the offensive side of the ball. Tight end after tight end after tight end going. They aren't the difference maker. There were much better players they could have taken than Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft. I don't see it. I think it stinks. I think it's a real shame because it's really going to hamstring Jordan Love on his 1 season he's probably going to have to prove himself because they've got to make a decision at the end of next year.
I think my issue with the Packers is that their offensive line could really have done with a bit of help. Because last year, Aaron Rodgers, who is brilliant at evading pressure and creating space and extending plays, he found it difficult behind that offensive line. And let's be honest, Jones and Dillon probably had their worst rushing seasons because the offensive line just wasn't that good. Saying that, there were a few injuries on the line. So David Bakhtiari was out for a long time. We know that. But guess what? He's coming back from those injuries and is another year older. So is he going to last out? I think they could have done with a little bit of help. They didn't. It just feels like they've gone a bit heavy on the skill positions. And the skill positions they got, are they going to have a significant improvement in them? Maybe.
I'm saying no.
But Luke Van Ness, a complete waste. But I understand why they did it because they still didn't replace Zadarius Smith.
Just from what I can see, I think there are so many picks and so little brought in to help them.
So as far as you're concerned, Packers lost the draft and Steelers won the draft.
Yes.
I still say Panthers won the draft. If you want to know why, listen to the last pod.
I still say no one can win the draft.
Panthers.
Of course you can.
Yes.
And the Bills. I like the Bills draft. They did pretty well the first half of their draft. So there you go. More teams I liked than didn't like. It was overall fairly decent draft for most teams. They at least got 1, 2, or 3 decent pickups throughout their draft classes, or they've saved themselves in free agency.
Is it wrong that I'm starting to hate the Bills? Like really hate them?
Why?
Don't know. It's just this growing resentment I've got inside me.
If you want.
It's because they keep failing at what you expect them to do. So
it
you're
might
sitting
be,
there
but
going, why should I want you to do well? And why can I obviously see what you should be doing?
Do you know what it is?
You're just not doing the things in the right way that would actually get you over the hump.
It's not. I don't think it's that. I think it's more this. It's the supporters. It's this whole Bills Mafia nonsense.
It's no different to
it annoys me.
Every set of supporters are horrible.
Me. I know it annoys me though. This overinflated sense of self-importance. It's like, all right, you can jump for a table, just pipe down, will you?
I think you have to worry about that.
I think it irritates me a little bit. That's all.
I mean, I was gutted they took Dorian Williams because I mentioned him as one of my favourites before the draft. And
She's good.
The way it's falling, she could have come to us. But a few picks later, we picked up Dana Washington. I was happy again. They have brought in Taylor Rapp from the Rams. I thought it was a fairly decent safety. Damian Harris, running back from the Patriots, and Poona Ford from the Seahawks, who will stop the running through the middle, which was their Achilles heel basically last season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I think they've done pretty
Achilles heel. Who did they get him from?
He went with Osiris Torrance in the second round.
Troy.
Yeah, come out of Troy, definitely. Okay. Anyone else?
This is when you know we're running out of steam. Not especially. I really like what a lot of teams did. I think, as I've said, I think the Lions have really come out of it smelling the roses. But yeah, Panthers still win it for me.
Are you happy, boy, or not happy?
I'm just like I don't know. I'm on the fence with our draft. I don't get a bit like you guys. I don't get the Falcons. Didn't understand what that was all about. But hey, it's a draft. No one cares.
Thing is,
really. Though, especially a Raiders fan,
the Falcons might just end up being the best draft class overall because not from their perspective, from ours.
From everybody
else, they're
going
to be amazing to watch next year. It's going to be
they're going to be great to talk about,
because every single game is going to have to be a shootout, and full well they're going to be 42 points up at halftime, and there's still a loss in them.
Yeah,
because that's what they do.
Absolutely.
There's going to be a score
like the Colts last season.
Yeah, exactly. Although the Colts at times couldn't score
no offense
at all. Yeah, absolutely nothing. But no, the Falcons next year could end up being a really, really good team to watch because they'll score a load and they'll concede a load as well.
There you go.
Got rosters of about 170 players now, haven't they? So
yeah, you have to whittle them down.
Of waiting and whittling it down, and then preseason and no, preseason doesn't exist, does it, in our world? So
not really. We will come back for next season, which will be around the end of August. So until then, we are going to have a bit of a rest, build up brownie points with the other halves, so that we can come back to doing this again when it comes into September, right the way through to the start of May. So thank you very much, guys, for being with us for this entire journey. Or if you just started, then thank you. You've got loads of stuff to go and check out on thefinaldown.com, all of our footage and stuff on there. Patreon.com/finaldown is where all our other stuff might be that we didn't get a chance to upload onto the main site. So please have a look at that. And of course, you can check us out on SoundCloud and iTunes and wherever. If you can leave a review, please do so. Make sure it's 5 stars and saying how much you like me. And maybe.
I'm insecure.
They don't have to lie or something.
He gets one decent Steelers draft and he gets all self-important again.
Allow this one. Allow me this one. Damn it. Just thank you once again, everyone, especially to the people that would join on the Patreon and just interacted with us, and all the people that helped out on the pod through the year. Everyone that came on and did the picks throughout the year. That's amazing to get people involved in that way. Looking forward to doing it all again next year. We'll try and be doing even more next year, and of course we'll have Finn with us for the entire season. He's now part of the furniture. Yeah, and we will get his name figured out on whatever platform is worked on social media by that time as well. It might do. And thank you, boys, as well for being part of it as well and allowing me to do it. So, yeah.
Does that mean my contract's getting paid up now? I've been a good boy and
we're going to pick up your option. Don't worry, punk.
Excellent. Yeah. There we go. So I'll be back next year then.
And well done to Jim. And I don't kiss Jim's ass very often, but I'm going to say this. Well done to Jim throughout the year for doing lots of editing on my laptop where I was robotic and cutting out and not making any sense. I'm actually really well cleaned up.
I think your new laptop should be MVP of our season.
Yes.
I mean, some of the grief and wasted time we've had recording conversations that
we've lost days.
You were just stuck in. I mean, the amount of content we could have produced in that time is just unfathomable.
I know, right?
We'll make up for it next season.
And everything. For whoever it is that finally got you a new laptop, because you know, it was
the truck it fell off. Yeah.
No, it was legit. It was
whatever mafia.
I got a good friend of ours to go and sort it out, and he found me the right laptop for the right deal and everything. Well done to him.
The right vig as well. Excellent. Okay, so until next time, guys, I've been Jim. That's been Never Dave. That's been Punk Radar, and thank you very much for listening.